はい、こんにちは。今日まだ日曜日ですね。ジュレルです。Welcome to Oxford Japanese lesson. Today we're going to talk about Kobe beef, and of course, I'm going to teach you a new Japanese word today, which is called omatase shimashita. Because somehow we have many programs here in Oxford, and we just finished one very important one on nutrition. And it overran because there's so much information to share, right? So once again, the new Japanese word to share with you is omatase, meaning thank you for waiting. Yeah, so it was supposed to be 1 o'clock, ichiji, then 1:30, ichiji han. Okay, so last week I talked about Wagyu because everybody talk about Wagyu and really do not have a lot of understanding what Wagyu is all about. Yeah, so I gave you a brief history of what Wagyu, the origin, and how do you define Wagyu, etc., etc. But on the other hand, there is still a lot of talk about Kobe beef, isn't it? Everybody, when they talk about Wagyu, they always say, oh, Kobe beef, Kobe beef, Kobe beef. It seems like Kobe beef is the top ranked Wagyu, all right? And I do not want to disagree or agree with it because, like I say in my last week, there are many types of Wagyu. In fact, almost every prefecture has their very own Wagyu, right? But Kobe beef stands out for several reasons, and I'm going to share with you today, all right? So let's revise a little bit, yeah? Because today's lesson, we're going to revise because I don't think you can remember everything I shared with you last week. So we're going to revise a little bit more, not revise a little bit more, but revise again what Wagyu is all about. And then I'm going to compare Kobe beef. And then I'm also going to share with you what are the different parts of cow. Because many times when you go to a good, fine restaurant for your yakiniku, yeah, you definitely see a picture of a cow and then it tells you which part of the cow you can order, right? But honestly, not many of us know which part is for what, yeah? I think the Japanese and the Koreans do much better in this area, yeah? And then after that, I myself, because last week I promised you that I'm going to share with you one of the best places to have yakiniku, real good beef that I go every time I visit Japan. So it's a secret little place of mine I'm going to share with you. Okay, so if time for revision, we go back to what I have shared with you before. Wagyu, there are 4 types, okay? And there are 4 unique breeds of cattle in Japan, okay? And then from there is the main one is always the Kuroge, which is 98% of the Wagyu comes from Kuroge. And then there's Akage, and there's Nihon Tankaku, and then there's Mukaku. All right. And then as you can see, there's this on the, where there's blue characters. I remind you that there is this thing called domestic Wagyu, meaning it may not come from these 4 breeds that I mentioned about, but if you bring a breed, let's say from the Korean breed, yeah, from young, maybe 6 months old, you bring it to Japan, and it's being continued to feed and raise in Japan for 6 years, let's say, or 3 years. Okay, so for the first 6 months it's in Korea, but for the next 6 years is in Japan. Is considered also a domestic Wagyu, but it's not pure Wagyu. Okay, because the pure Wagyu always comes from the 4 breed, which is the Kuroge, Akage, Tangaku, and Mukaku. Okay, so this is a revision. And we always have to remember that 98% or even 98% of Wagyu actually come from the breed called Kuroge, all right, which is Hei Mao He Niu. And then like I say, when I started this session, I keep saying that, hey, look, everybody loves their Wagyu, and every prefecture has their Wagyu, and then there is a lot of debate about which is best, right? But you can see here in my slide here, I have highlighted on the right side, number 1 and number 10. And number 10 actually is Kobe beef, even though Kobe beef is so famous around the world, everybody is crazy for a slice of Kobe beef, but in the ranking last year, it's ranked number 10. But then again, these are all personal preference. What I want to highlight there is because it comes from the same prefecture called Hyogo-ken, which is in Kansai, right? And then on the left side, there's also a chart where, you know, the so-called cattle ranchers, they also rank their beef, Wagyu, because they also have competition among themselves, right? There again, Kobe beef is ranked number 11. What I'm trying to say that Kobe beef is definitely one of the premium beef that you want to try if you have a chance to go into Japan. But if you do not have a chance to try Kobe beef, no matter which prefecture you are, there will still be very good beef available for you. Yeah, so you just have a look out. So, like I say, this is last year because all the farmers are trying to breed their special cow, right? The best beef. This is what Japanese are always so great about. They always try to improvise. They try to get better each time. And the recent trend is from Kyushu, which is Kyushu, the southern island of Japan. There are some up and coming branded Wagyu, which is the Miyazaki Gyu, Kagoshima Kurokyu, and Kumamoto Akashi, right? And for me, later, I'm going to share with you again, this little secret place that I go to Tokyo is actually Kagoshima Gyu. And to me right now, that is the best, to me, honestly, right? So we go further. Okay. So Gokusan Gyu, okay, this is revision again. Gokusan Gyu means domestic Wagyu, okay, that is being bred in Japan, but may not be totally from the 4 breeds that I've mentioned earlier, okay? So in this domestic Japanese beef, you can have Holstein, you can have Jersey, you have Angus. We always heard about Angus beef, right? So it can be Angus, but because it's raised in Japan longer than where its origin is, so it also can be considered Gokusan Gyu. Yeah. So far so good. Remember? Okay. So again, revise. Because if you want to show off in front of your friend that you know about Wagyu, okay, you have to always remember the basics. Otherwise, you know, you get a little bit what call it. Paise lah, if you give not humiliated, but you feel shy if you give the wrong information in front of your friends. Okay. All right. So kuroge. Okay. Again, kuroge is the so-called ancestor, the root of all Wagyu. And if you have to break down the kuroge, which cattle is the so-called origin is always the Tajima cattle. It's the common essence, it's the common ancestors of the 4 Wagyu strain. Okay, so another fact is called the Tajima cattle. Tajima cattle. It is the Zuzong, you know, the great ancestor of all the Wagyu, the 4 main strains. Yeah. So the next one is Akage. Okay, means red lah, actually. But then here we call it the Japanese brown. And then we have the Nihon Tankaku. Nihon Tankaku means short horn. As you can see in the picture, short horn. All right, short horn. It also gives you a very savory flavor in the beef. And then you have the Mukaku. Again, by name, you know that it has no horn, right? So the meat here is very lean, okay, and the texture is very rich and meaty taste. All right, so there again, because today is a theme, the main character is Wagyu and Kobe beef, because everybody knows about Kobe beef, right? If I talk to them about Akashi, I talk about Kagoshima, people do not know. I talk about Yazawa, they do not know. But all around the world, everybody is crazy for Wagyu, and to them, they have this misunderstanding that Wagyu equals to Kobe beef, but it really not isn't, because Kobe beef has a high standard, okay? And I'm going to share with you what constitutes a Kobe beef. There must be some conditions to be met, All right. Okay, so Kobe beef comes from, again, the black Tajima cattle breed. That is definitely must have, yeah. And then Kobe beef is also has very good nutrition. If for those who have caught us earlier in the 3B fitness video, Kobe beef also have a lot of nutrition if you can afford to have enough Kobe beef to eat every day. It has low in saturated fat, omega-3 fatty acid, okay, so that it can help you to reduce the risk of heart disease. Yeah. Okay, and then what else? Actually, another point, okay, because Japan also has a very long history, just like most civilization. The raising of the cattle in Japan is barely 1,000 years old. So it's a fairly new industry per se, if you compare to the history, right? Because why? Eating meat was prohibited in Japan following the Buddhist teaching. Yeah, so this is just a fun fact that I can share with you. All right, so another word I want to share with you is joken. All right, joken means condition. Why I want to share this word with you? Because remember just now, I say that to be able to classify as Kobe beef, there are conditions. So there must be joken. Okay, and there are 7 of them. I'm going to share with you later. Right, so joken in Japanese means conditions. All right, and chewy means caution, because like I say, many people know about Wagyu. They go to restaurants, they go to supermarket. When you see a label say Wagyu, and you assume it's Wagyu, but sometimes you even see label that say Australian Wagyu or Wagyu style or Kobe beef style. So what is it? So we try to get this right. All right, so I'm going to share with you some pointers. If you go to your supermarket or if you go to a restaurant and have your Wagyu beef steak, you have to know something, right? Because you do not want to pay something for, pay a price for so-called a good piece of steak, but it's actually not what you wanted. Yeah, so that would be a shame. Okay, so there are standards to follow. Okay. All right, and then like I show you in the very first slide just now, I have to agree, probably Hyogo-ken, the Hyogo prefecture has always been ranking up there for producing the best beef because of Kobe beef. The capital city of Hyogo is Kobe. All right, and then because Kobe beef comes from Hyogo, and that's why you have to know about this prefecture called Hyogo-ken. All right, and then like the latest ranking last year, Kobe beef was ranked 10th, but the top one is Dambagyu. Dambagyu is also from Hyogo. So apparently, I'm trying to tell you that Hyogo has impressive cattle farmers that can produce excellent beef, right? Excellent beef. So what is so special about Hyogo? Because the Hyogo government, okay, maintain its Kobe beef stock with the semen of just 12 bulls. That means only 12 bulls to produce the population of Kobe beef. 12 bulls. And then they keep it in a very special facility because these are the premium, right? Because these 12 bulls is going to continue to propagate the population of Kobe beef so that it can continue to maintain the high standard. Okay, so and after slaughtering the cattle and grading the meat, only half of the Tajima cattle even make it to qualify as Kobe beef. So this is how stringent it is. And that is why Kobe beef can always maintain a very high standard in terms of taste and flavor and texture. So even the Hyogo government comes in and protect this so-called their intellectual property rights about how to raise Kobe beef and the stringent rules and conditions of the Kobe beef. Yeah? All right? So another fun fact, there are 12 bulls up to now kept in the facility, special facility to continue to propagate and populate Kobe beef. And for your information, why is it so rare to try a real authentic Kobe beef? Is because every year the production is only 3,000 cattle. 3,000, nothing more, nothing less. And out of this 3,000, of course, more than 70% is kept in Japan. So it's very rare to eat real Kobe beef. Okay, so just another recap. Yeah, when we go and buy our beef steak, there is always, you can see some letterings, some numbers beside the beef, right? So like you can see A5, you see B3, you see A4. What does that mean? So to put it in a simple term for everybody to understand, I'm going to use a very Singaporean example because we are broadcasting this year from Singapore. So like when we go to the army, you have PES A, PES B, PES C. So PES A is like the fittest, means you are supposed to be able to go to any kind of what you call that, military unit, right? So the same for the cow itself. When you are categorized, A means 95% of the whole cow, the quality of the meat is of A grade. So it's of the top notch. It's just like a soldier. When you are PES A grade, you are supposed to be the fittest. You're supposed to be healthy, right? So B means, maybe 80% of the whole cow is considered of good quality. So like in army term, again, Singapore, when you are PES B, probably have some injuries, that's why you are considered PES B, right? So the number behind 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, 5 is always the best, yeah? What does this 5 mean? It actually means the quality of the beef itself. As in when you slaughter the beef, you get to see the marbling, right? The marbling, which is the piece of meat, the white strands, and the marbling, the meat color, okay? The brightness of the meat, the firmness, the texture of the meat, the quality of the fat, okay? All these make up the grading system, the quality of the meat, 1 to 5, all right? And of course, needless to say, A5 is top notch. It's the best. There's nothing you can ask for more, right? So now, Kobe beef. This is where it comes, okay? For those who have been always wondering why Kobe beef is commanding such a high demand, and then the Hyogo government is also putting so much restriction, or rather a high condition to maintain this strain of beef, is because there are 7 joken, 7 conditions. First, of course, is called the bullock or the virgin cow, right? And that has to be bred by the 12 male semen, right? The 12 cows that they still have right now. And it's Tajima-gyu born within the Hyogo prefecture. Remember, the ancestor of all Wagyu is from the black cow strain, right? Okay. And it's from the Tajima cattle. That is the great-grandfather of all the Wagyu. But this great-grandfather, Tajima-gyu born, must be within Hyogo prefecture. Nowhere else. That means it's going to be pure Hyogo population. Okay, within the population. It has to be fed on a farm within Hyogo prefecture. So it cannot be in Aichi, it cannot be in Fukuoka, it cannot be in Tokyo. It has to be within the farm of the Hyogo prefecture. Next, the meat process also must be within the Hyogo prefecture. So can you see, it's just like our Neutralite supplement. Everything has to be controlled strictly. Right? No third party. Cannot be outside Hyogo. Right? So for Kobe beef, this is the condition. So the number 5th condition is the marbling rating, as you can see in the picture. Right? The white, what do you call that, webbings of the piece of meat there has to be 6 or higher. In the marbling criteria of beef, there is a point scale from 1 to 12. Point 1, the grading of 1 to 2 is almost all red, that you cannot even see much of the white webbing. So it's never even considered in grading beef. If you grade beef for marbling, at least to be 3 and all the way to 12, and then anything from 6 and above is considered good and excellent. So for Kobe beef, one of the BMS, which is a marbling rating, has to be 6 or higher. Yeah. And the meat quality has to be 4 or higher. So basically, when you're getting a real Kobe beef, it's going to be either A5 or A4. Anything below, papa, no good. Okay. And then The last condition will be that overall weight cannot exceed 470 kilograms. You see how stringent it is? Even the weight of the Kobe beef, the cow itself, yeah, the Tajima cattle raised in Hyogo, right? Meat must be processed there, must be fed there. But if this particular cow on the day of slaughtering is more than 470 kilograms, it's not considered Kobe beef because it will affect also the texture, the marbling, the fats inside this particular cow, right? So there again, these are the 7 conditions to be equal to Kobe beef, right? So if you actually go to a nice posh restaurant and you actually ask this question and the waiter or the captain cannot give you the right answer, you know that they are not being truthful to you, and probably that the slab of beef there may not be Kobe beef. All right, so the next one here will be, okay, so that's what I want to share with you. Kobe Gyu Chewy. That means, you know, if you want to really buy Kobe beef, things that you should know, that in which I've shared earlier just now, the 7 conditions of to be met so they can be considered classified as Kobe beef. All right, so one is anybody selling or serving Kobe beef should be very familiar with what it is, why it is so exceptional. Okay, so the simple question to ask is, where is it from? Okay, the answer is going to be Hyogo. I have been mentioning Hyogo, right? What strain it comes from, and this one is common knowledge already. Everybody knows that all the Wagyu comes from this strain called Tajima. All right, and then the BMS rating, which is a marbling, remember, 6 and above. 6 and above. Marbling rating is 1 to 12. 1 to 2, don't even consider. 3 to 12, but anything above 6 is considered good. Okay, so if they don't know these answers, chances are the steak isn't real Kobe. Yeah, that's sure. Trust me. Okay, so when you go to the supermarket, there's also such a thing called Kobe style. That's why I put here in red character. Kobe style chewy, because they are companies, they are cattle farm, they come up with a labeling. When you go to the supermarket, they say, oh, it's Kobe style. But is Kobe style Kobe beef? We have to know the difference, okay? So the label Kobe style is reserved for Wagyu beef that has been raised to Kobe beef standard, in which I've shared with you just now, the 7th standard, except for those that require the cattle that have been born, fed, and slaughtered within Hyogo Prefecture. Meaning, let's say right now I start a farm in Okinawa, right? And I raise it to the standard of the Kobe beef, the 7th standard, except that it is not in Hyogo, it is in Okinawa. All right, it is not considered Kobe beef, but it's considered Kobe style, right? So, can anybody raise beef similar to Kobe beef? Yes, except that it is not in the prefecture of Hyogo. Okay, if you keep it to the high standard, you know, especially to the weight of 470 kilogram, yeah, and then the meat has to be A5 and A4, yeah. And then what else? Wagyu, because there are so many types of Wagyu. So here I have a slide that say Wagyu chewy. Okay, if buying domestic Wagyu, make sure that you're buying from a reputable seller. Okay, where the source of beef, you know where it's from. Okay, because like I showed in the earlier slides, there are many prefectures that breed their own cattle, right? So there's, actually all of Japan, they have it. And some of them has actually come up to be pretty good. They are comparable. Sometimes even more. I mean, again, it's personal preference that to some people is even more superior than Kobe beef. Like the Yonezawa beef I shared with you last time, and Hidan beef, right? So they are from different prefecture, right? So, so you have to be careful. Otherwise, you'll be risking what? Buying percentage Wagyu. What is percentage Wagyu? Meaning it's crossbreeding. So it can be an Australian strain and a Wagyu strain. And according to the USDA standard, yeah, any cattle herd that when you slaughter has about 46.7% of Wagyu, they can label it as Wagyu beef. So that's why in Singapore here, when you go to cold storage, when you go to not NTUC lah, but some of the high premium supermarket, you can get Wagyu. But then when you look at the product itself, it's not from Japan, but it can be from Australia, it can be from USA. Why? Because it fulfills the standard of that particular cow has about 47% of the Wagyu strain in there. Okay? Okay, that's why. And then, of course, just now we have Kobe beef, Kobe style, right? There's some manufacturers actually come up with Wagyu style. But honestly, sad to say, the Wagyu style label is unfortunately meaningless. So if you go to the market again, you see something on a packet that say Wagyu style, you can walk away. Okay, basically it's meaningless. Okay, there is no such thing as Wagyu style. So now you have a little bit more knowledge about buying your beef. You know what you look for. You know what you want to eat, right? So, like I say, we also need to know, okay, the different beef cuts. If you go to any good beef restaurant or barbecue place or the steakhouse, they usually will show you a picture of a cow and the different parts of the beef. Right? So this in English is easy to understand, but because I'm talking about Wagyu, so if you go to a Japanese steakhouse, they do not show a beef, or rather a picture where you have the English words in it. They will also have their own Japanese way of saying the particular parts of the cow, right? For example, you see plate, you can see plate, which is near where if it's a cow, then you have where milk is being produced, the plate area, yeah. The plate is the diaphragm of a cow. In Japanese, it's called harami. Harami. So if you go to the Japanese steakhouse, you will see harami, you know that is talking about this part called the diaphragm, it's called a plate. It's one muscle commonly cut into two separate cuts of meat. I have my own preference, and I usually do order at least 1 or 2 orders of harami. Actually, it's quite tasty. Yeah. So of course, inside the cow, most people will go for if you know the answer. Anybody know the answer? You can type your comments. Yeah. It's sirloin. Okay. But there again, different preference. I have a friend that prefer different parts of the cow. Yeah. So let's go into a little bit more detail. So now to know what are the beef cuts. Sirloin is considered the best cuts of the cow. So if you go to a restaurant, a steakhouse, if you want to have a nice steak, ask for sirloin. Yeah. Okay, so this is a typical Japanese steakhouse restaurant. It will come in a plate like that. And of course, again, common people like us do not know. So the Japanese are a good restaurant, usually are very kind, and they're very thoughtful. They will put sign beside the cuts of the beef. So as you can see here, you have sirloin, you have ichibo, you have, they're telling you which part of the meat. And you can see the different parts of the meat has different marbling, different color, and some of the meat here is marinated because some parts of the meat is better, it tastes better with marination. Yeah. While other parts of the meat, some, like myself, I will not even eat the marinated part. I just dip it with salt. Yeah, it tastes best. It brings out the sweetness in you. Okay, so now we go into what should you order, what parts of the beef, and in no particular taste, preference, or order, I am going to show you 8 different parts of the beef. Okay, I'm going to increase your beef eating culture when you go to a steakhouse. The first slide is sirloin. I'm talking about Wagyu now, yeah, sirloin. The description is always regarded as the best of the beef cuts. It's from the loin. So just now you see the cow, yeah. You see this in the middle, in the big portion, the loin and the sirloin. This is considered the best part of the cow. If you want to have some of the best meat, yeah. The appearance is fine mesh-like marbling. So if you eat the real Wagyu, there's a lot of marbling. The more the marbling it is, it allows it to be, what you call that, melts at a lower temperature. That's why good Wagyu with A5 or A4 category, when you put in your mouth, it actually melts. That's what people say, and it's true. If you have a good piece of Wagyu, A5, A4 grade, you put it into your mouth, it starts to melt because of the marbling. Yeah, a very good marbling of 6 and above. And then the taste itself is rich, full-bodied flavor that spreads throughout the entire mouth. Mamma mia. Oishi desu ne. Yeah, oishi ne. So, Mamma mia is Italian. So sirloin. So what can you use the sirloin for? Steak, definitely. You have to have a steak, sirloin steak, shabu shabu, okay, or even sukiyaki. Yeah. And then the next cut is the harami. Okay, again, in the Japanese menu, you see harami. It's written in katakana. All right, but where's the harami again? It's in the plate area, which is very close to the loin and sirloin area. Yeah. So again, I always order the harami when I go to Japanese barbecue. It's like I mentioned earlier, is the diaphragm. Okay. Sometimes also called sagari. Sagari, because sagari means sagging. Right. So the part of the cow is where you have the milk, the breast muscle is sagging. All right. So it's called sagari. Okay. But the correct most of the time, you go to a restaurant, Japanese restaurant, you see harami. Okay, is the deep red meat that is actually awful. All right, the taste is, despite being awful, it actually has a very strong meaty taste. Okay, most of the time, because is, you know what's awful? Awful are like the intestine, the large intestine, small intestine, the kidney is considered awful. So sometimes it has a very strong taste. That's why they suggest barbecue with a rich sauce. But even if you go to a barbecue place where you order harami, actually it comes marinated. It comes marinated. Yeah. And then because it's the diaphragm, when you do over the barbecue, yeah, you should also cook a little bit longer. Okay, for this particular part, you have to cook it a little bit longer. Okay, so and then again, in no particular order, but in my order, there's the hormone. My Korean friends always love to bring me to eat hormone. Okay, but when you go to Korea, eat hormone is all the intestines and everything. But now we come back to Japan. Okay, it's called the Wagyu offal, right? Hormone. Okay, and then the appearance is white, rather fatty because of the intestine. Okay, but actually it's very sweet. If you taste it, it's very sweet. It has a very unique, rich, sweet flavor to me. Actually, is very flavorful. Okay, and then recommended is barbecue. Okay, until golden brown. So that's why you can see in a lot of steakhouse you have hormone. Okay, this one is probably up to personal preference. I do not order this when I go to a Japanese steakhouse, but when my Korean friends bring me to the typical Korean barbecue, they always eat hormone. Okay, and honestly, it's full of intestine, the big one, the small ones, etc., etc. But it's really, really sweet, really, really tasty. Okay. All right, and then there's the karabi, the ribs. Okay, so karabi actually is a Korean pronunciation. It's the Korean word for rib, and generally stands for beef ribs. Karabi is lean meat. Actually, everybody who goes to any Japanese steakhouse, they always prefer to have karabi, especially for the children, because it's heavily marinated and then it has no fats. Yeah, so it's lean meat with a very fine mesh-like marbling. All right, and because of the marbling, it gives it a very deep flavor. Huh? And then for my personal preference, I always like it to be plain or with a little bit of salt. Actually, if you have the right salt for your beef, you bring out the sweetness of the beef better, instead of going through all the different types of marinated sauce available. Yeah. So for myself, I always like to have it with a hint of salt. So far, so good, people. I can continue because there are 8 different cuts that I like. I'm sharing with you right now. Okay, understanding your beef when you go to a Japanese steakhouse. The next one is the brisket. In Japanese, it's called katabara. Katabara. Okay, this is kata, shoulder. Okay, so katabara is brisket. It is a layer of lean meat. I mean, the description, of course, is cut from the breast or lower chest part, called katabara. So it is actually a layer of lean meat with some fat. It's a rather tough cut. Okay, it's very tender after cooking, and then is firm because it's close to the rib. This is also one dish that I always order. Beside the sirloin, beside the harami, I also usually will have the katabara. It is also very good for your hamburger, and it's also for stew, right? And then this one, maybe not many people try. If you read in Japanese katakana, you know it. It's called tang. Tang sounds like tongue. Actually, it's the cow tongue. I always have it as my first plate, the appetizer. And if you want to have the best cow tongue, it's not from Kobe. It's from Miyazaki. Okay, Miyazaki, Sendai area, the capital city called Sendai City, is very famous for the cow tongue. All right, and it's really, when you say tongue, if I don't tell you it's tongue, you'll probably feel that that particular meat is part of the body of the cow, but actually it's very tasty. It's very thick. It tastes like meat. Right? So if you do not imagine that you're eating the tongue of a cow, you can actually enjoy it. So myself, like I've written here in this particular slide, I always order cow tongue. It comes with a plate like what you see here, slice, and usually come with salt or lemon. So I'll put lemon on top of this cow tongue, and I eat it like this, yeah, as it is. Okay, so this is beef tongue. Right? If you recognize this tongue, it can be cut into slices. Okay, often very thin. That's why the cow tongue is actually very thick. They can cut into many slices, right? It is a very acquired taste, unique taste. You just have to try it if you have the chance to, okay? And then there again, a little tip, the best cow tongue comes from the prefecture called Miyazaki, and the capital city is called Sendai. So if you go to Sendai, there's plenty of shops or restaurants that sell you cow tongue in different varieties, yeah? Good. All right. And then the next part is the katarosu. Katarosu. Okay, is the chuck eye. Where is the chuck eye? We can go back here and take a look. All right, you can see where the chuck eye is, right? Okay, the chuck closest to the neck, so it's very tough. It's very, very tough. Yeah. Some people like it, some don't. Okay, so it's fatty towards the head. Yeah, the chuck is here, okay, and with a fine marbling. It's an excellent balance of lean meat and fat. So if you like your beef to have some fat in it, then probably you can order a chuck eye. In Japanese is katarosu. Katarosu. But usually Japanese use it for sukiyaki. Yeah, use it for sukiyaki. I usually do not order kata roast when I go to Japanese barbecue place. Yeah, I usually don't. Okay, my usual is always the tongue, not the katabara, but always the karabi, and then hormone again for acquired taste. Harami definitely will have, and the sirloin definitely will have. Okay. And then the last is the lip roast. Okay, this you can see is written in katakana, so it's actually, you know, the copycat, not copycat, a duplicate of a foreign word. Okay, so it's the rib eye. but in Japanese they call it the lip roast. Lip roast. Lip roast. Okay, is the rib eye. I think most people know what rib eye is all about. Yeah. Anyway, it's also considered the best cut of the meat along with the sirloin. All right, the rib eye actually costs a little, or rather, is always priced a little bit higher than most part of the beef. Yeah, if you go to any restaurant, be it in an American restaurant or a Japanese restaurant or even a Korean restaurant, and then it has a great balance between lean meat and fat. Beautiful marbling. Yeah, and it has a rich umami flavor. Umami is aroma, savory taste. Okay, has excellent quality. So rib eye, if you want, probably you should consider to also order the rib eye when you have your Japanese barbecue. And then the suggestion is always try it as a steak, all right, or just like the sirloin, use it for sukiyaki or shabu shabu. Yeah. So far, so good. So now everybody have the understanding of Wagyu, the different conditions that qualify as Kobe beef, and I have shown it to you when you go to a Japanese steakhouse, what to look for, what are different types of meat, and what it is all about. Yeah. So we can go through one more time very quickly. Yeah. Sirloin is the best part. Yeah. And then the loin and the sirloin, the best part. Harami, which is the diaphragm, you have to cook a little bit longer. Huh? I like harami. And then horomon, again, is a quiet taste depending on people. Then there is a karabi. Everybody loves karabi because usually it's heavily marinated, yeah, and it's lean meat. Yeah, there's not much fat. And then the katabara, okay, myself, I do not usually order katabara, but you try it and you tell me whether you like it or not. And then the tongue, I always have it as the first plate, yeah, because I dip it with salt or lemon. It's literally the tongue of a cow, yeah. And then the chuck eye, which is in Japanese called the katarosu, and then the rib eye, rib roast, right? There again, it is still a Japanese lesson. I don't think anybody who join my lesson and have a few conversation, dialogue, practice that you remember. So I think it's good to revise a little bit more again. When you go to a Japanese restaurant, you say, do you have an English menu? You say, Eigo no menu wa arimasu ka? Eigo no menu wa arimasu ka? We have gone through this a couple of times, but I just want to revise one more time because when you go to a restaurant, this will be the standard things that you can try to show off your Japanese language. Yeah. So, do we have an English menu? Eigo no menu wa arimasu ka? Eigo no menu wa arimasu ka? What should we have for dinner? Bangohan wa nani o tabemasu ka? Bangohan wa nani o tabemasu ka? So when the waiter comes, he wants to take your order, usually they will say, Okimari desu ka? Okimari desu ka? Have you decided? Okimari desu ka? Kimari means decide. Okimari desu ka? So when you hear Kimari, is asking you, have you decided? Are you ready to order? Okay. Then usually when you go to the steak place, if you have not joined my lesson today, you do not know what is harami, you do not know what is sirloin, etc., then you can ask, Osusume wa nan desu ka? Osusume wa nan desu ka? Osusume is recommend, right? So this is something that you can always use in any shop you go into Japan. Osusume wa nan desu ka? What would you recommend? And of course, every restaurant have their, number one seller. So they say, Kanban menu wa ikaka desu ka? Kanban menu wa ikaka desu ka? So this is like their signature dish. They'll tell you, Kanban menu wa ikaka desu ka? So Kanban menu is usually very commonly used as their signature dish in any kind of restaurants you go. Kanban menu wa ikaka desu ka? And then if you say, oh, you have decided you want to have two of these, you say, それは2つをお願いします。それは2つをお願いします。Yeah, 2つ。Okay, 3 is 3つ。4 is 4つ。Yeah, それは2つお願いします。And then when the food comes, you will hear this from the waiter. Okay, お待たせしました。 Omatase itashimashita. Omatase, just like just now, when I started this whole session, because we have many channels, we have many programs, it clashes, we overrun a little bit, I come to you and I say omatase, right? Omatase. So thank you for waiting. Thank you for waiting. Yeah. And then standard Japanese greetings. When you finish a meal, you thank the people who prepared the meal, etc., etc. You say "Gochiso sama deshita." Gochiso sama deshita. You give thanks to the food. You give thanks to the people who prepare the food. You give thanks to the animals, yeah, or etc., etc. Okay, so gochiso sama deshita, you can use it in any setting, lunch, dinner, any meal settings. Okay, all right, so very good. Now, my little secret. Does anybody know that Wagyu also have Olympics? Right? So there is this Wagyu Olympic that is held a little bit different. The man human one is every 4 years, but the Wagyu Olympic is every 5 years. And in 2017, Wagyu Olympic, Kagoshima took first place. And that's why I've been repeating myself this week and last week that every prefecture has their own beef. But all the Wagyu come from the 4 strains that I tell you, and 98% of the strain come from the black cattle. Right? And the Japanese are always trying to improve. So they have competition. Right? That's why you see in the second or third slide of my presentation today, the top one was from Hyogo, is the Tamba Gyu, but number 10 was Kobe beef, which is known around the world, but it's ranked number 10. But then again, in the latest, which is a couple years back, 2017, Wagyu Olympics, Kagoshima took first place, and I have the chance to go to I chanced upon when I was making frequent travels to Japan, Tokyo, I chanced upon this particular restaurant, and then it's not very flashy. You cannot find it like in the right smack in the middle of the main street. It's in this place called Yotsuya. It's very close to Shinjuku, and then you cannot even see it properly because it's beside a pharmacy, and then there's a small staircase, and then you have to walk down the staircase. It's very narrow. If you go to Japan, you have been to Japan before, you know that everything is very narrow. So I have a chance to bump into this, and at the time, because I already noticed that Kyushu has always come up tops in the raising of cattle, and then Kagoshima took first place back in 2017. Right? And then I have to tell you, this place now is my little own secret I'm sharing with you guys right now. Yeah, this place is in Yotsuya. Right? It's called Ushinokura. Okay, and Kagoshima is also known as Satsuma. It's an old name for Kagoshima, so it's called Satsuma. Right? Okay, and when you go down, the small stair is very narrow staircase. You go down, you walk into this particular restaurant. The two sides, the very small passageway, but the two sides are full of all the farmer cattle breeders that breed the Kagoshima beef. And then they tell you that their beef is the top 4% of all the Japanese Wagyu. And all the farmers that breed this Kagoshima Gyu, they will share their testimony, how they show all their tender loving care to bring out the best of the Kagoshima Gyu. Okay, so it's very nicely done, a very beautiful place, very serene when you go inside. It has this atmosphere that if you bring your family, or even if you go there as a couple, if you go there in the business setting, it's perfect. It's very serene. Right? This is a setting inside. All the settings are personal space. Yeah, and then it's very affordable. Honestly, it's very affordable because here they only serve A4 or A5 beef, and they have, of course, just like many restaurants, they have different courses. I personally tried one myself, and I just have to take two $50 bill, and I have a wonderful meal of Wagyu beef, which is A5 grade. So if you have a chance to go to Tokyo, I think everybody is dying to fly out to visit. If you have a chance to buy a ticket to Tokyo, this is my little secret. All right, is in Tokyo, is in Yotsuya. The name of the place is called what correct? Kuro Ushinokuro. Yeah, and then it is very beautiful. All right, so bon appetit. See how beautiful the slab of Wagyu is. Okay, so but then again, if we cannot travel here in Singapore, I believe people have been asking me, where do you go for a good Wagyu? You cannot eat for the $250 bill I pay in Yotsuya, okay? But there's this place called Masa, M-A-S-A, is near Robertson Quay. All right, and then the beef that they serve is Yazawa beef. Okay, very good, great beef. But there again, you have to fork more than the $250 bill that I have paid for real Kagoshima beef here in this particular place. You see, this particular place, Uchinokura, they only serve Kagoshima, and because why? Kagoshima came in first place in the Olympics. Yeah. So, okay, I guess I have also shared with you all I need to know, all I have to know about Wagyu and Kobe beef, and I have already pronounced to you that I love Kagoshima beef, and I've shared with you my little Kagoshima place where you can eat one of the best steak in Japan. So I hope you like my session. You have increased your knowledge about Wagyu. And then if you are yearning for more knowledge, 3 p.m., okay, we also have a face-off between two beautiful ladies, yeah, telling you guys how you can be as pretty, as, how should I say, probably rank, consider yourself the Kobe beef standard. There must be some condition to be pretty, right? So I share with you the 7 conditions of being a Kobe beef. The two ladies will face off and tell you what are the conditions to be wonderful in washing your face, what to look out for, so that you can consider yourself the top notch, yeah, in terms of skincare. All right, so if you have any comments, drop inside the comment box anytime, and then I'll check it, I'll come back to you. And then I hope you have a good time enjoying my 2 weeks of session about Wagyu Kobe beef. And there again, I'm not promoting, but if you want to try a good place, go to this place called Masa, okay, in Singapore. In Tokyo, go to this place that I've just shared with you just now. It's in Yotsuya. Okay, so that's it for now. Bon appetit, itadakimasu, arigatou gozaimashita. Thank you.